Over the years, there have been a lot of really bad takes about VR from quote-unquote journalists that have likely never put on a headset. But recently, there have been a few that just chef's kiss, take the cake. I'm mainly talking about the one by CNBC and the New York Times. Before I get into just how absolutely stupid these are, I'll give you a little background info. During Christmas, it seems everyone and their dog bought a Meta Quest 2. Tons of VR games on the Quest platform broke records with concurrent players, and on Christmas, the Oculus app was the most popular app out of all the apps on the Apple App Store. So a pretty good week for VR. And of course, when there is something good, the mainstream media decides to make it into something bad, acting like VR games are one of the 7 pits of Tartarus or something. These two main articles are titled The Metaverse's Dark Side, Here Comes Harassment and Assaults, and Bought Your Kids a VR Headset for Christmas? You Might Regret It. And in all fairness, the title to this second one isn't too bad, and if they had solid reasons to back this up, it might even make a good article. But anyways, let's get into it. So the New York Times, an air quotation reliable news source, wrote this. Shailene Siggins put on her VR headset to play some of her favorite VR shooter, Population 1. She turned on the game and maneuvered into the lobby and waited for the game to start. While she waited, another player's avatar approached her and simulated jerking off and touching her boobs. Miss Siggins, shocked, told the player to stop. He then shrugged as if to say, I don't know what to tell you, this is the metaverse, I'll do what I want, and then left. So first off, I want to say what the guy did wasn't nice. In fact, I'd say it's probably similar in severity to something like, teabagging, which for those who didn't know, simulates sliding your balls on someone's face. Not nice, pretty rude, but at the end of the day, something that should be a reasonably forgettable experience, because in the end, it's VR. It's not real. He just moved his hands around in a VR game. His hands don't even collide with your body, so it would be like being groped by a ghost. Alright, this next part I find quite annoying. So, the avatar, he shrugs, as if to say, it's the metaverse, I'll do what I want. Do any of these journalists know what a metaverse is? Population 1 is not a metaverse. Now, several online dictionaries actually changed the definition of metaverse after Mark Zuck branded his whole platform on it, but even the new definitions agree this still isn't a metaverse. Like really, metaverse really has just become a meaningless buzzword. Does anyone remember when the word actually had meaning? The qualifications for being a metaverse are as follows. A virtual environment where players' actions have a lasting impact on the world. And all definitions, old and new, require the metaverse to be an interconnected platform, not an isolated game. This is a VR Battle Royale game, okay? Not the metaverse. Here they say the world's biggest tech companies, Google, Microsoft, Apple, and others are all trying to create the metaverse. So, another mistake here. They aren't trying to create the metaverse, they're all trying to create a metaverse. A separate metaverse for each of them. A metaverse that they would control. Each company wants to make their own separate one. At least that's their current stated goals. Yet even as tech giants bet big on the concept, questions about the metaverse's safety have surfaced. Harassment, assaults, bullying, and hate speech already run rampant in virtual reality games, which are part of the metaverse. Alright. Harassment, bullying, and hate speech can happen literally anywhere. They can happen on social media, via text message, or in the town square. So it's really stupid to point at VR and say that these are VR's problems. And then there is this claim about assault. While according to the laws in several countries, in very select circumstances, it is legally possible to assault someone in VR, but the way they use the word in this article is completely bonkers and also completely wrong. And really, calling it assault makes a mockery of those who have actually been assaulted in real life. There are few mechanisms to easily report the misbehavior, researchers said. In one popular virtual reality game, VR Chat, a violating incident occurs about once every 7 minutes, according to the nonprofit Center for Countering Digital Hate. Now, these guys are particularly insane. The CCDH is mentioned in the other article too, so I will be talking more about them a bit later. But, spoiler, they're hilariously bad, and going over them will probably be the highlight of this video. When something bad happens, when someone comes up and gropes you, your mind is tricking you into thinking it's happening in the real world, Mrs. Siggins said. With the full metaverse, it's going to be even more immersive and much more intense. Okay, I'm a little skeptical here. The thing is, to successfully trick someone into thinking they're being groped, they would have to have at least a sense of touch. Something that VR doesn't have in any meaningful capacity yet. I mean, sure, there are haptic vests, and while neat, they are very different from any touch in the real world. Same if you're knifed in VR. No one is tricked into thinking they've actually been stabbed. And once again, Population 1 doesn't have collision physics, so their hands would have literally passed through you like a ghost. Mr. Zuck, who appears aware of questions about the metaverse's harms, has promised to build it with privacy and safety in mind, yet even his own lieutenants have wondered whether they can really stop toxic behavior there. And that's just it. You can't really stop toxic behavior anywhere without sacrificing something else. A lot of people on the internet suggest forcing players to use their real names when gaming, which, even if worked, would ruin the thing that makes VR so fun, the freedom to be yourself. I don't know about you, but a world where you can be targeted and harassed in real life for the things you do in a game doesn't seem appealing to me. So one last thing from this article, a funny quote from the author. So here she says the reason she keeps playing regardless of her traumatizing experience. So her reason is because of diversity. Because she thinks there needs to be more diversity in VR, she won't stop playing. And I mean, first off, who are you to say how much diversity there is in VR games? We really have no idea what percentage of players are minorities. And yeah, like most shooter games, we do know females are a minority of the player base. But my goodness, just admit you enjoy the game, and that's why you keep playing it. Not some obvious bullcrap about doing it for the minorities. My goodness. Okay, next we have the much shorter article from the CNBC and the promotional material from the CCDH. But before any of that, if you watched to this point in the video, consider liking, subscribing, and maybe sharing it with someone who you think will find this interesting. By doing these things, you support my small channel, and give me the encouragement and support I need to make more videos like this. Okay, so next we got the CNBC saying that you may regret getting your kid a VR headset, which I agree with to an extent. I mean, you might regret getting your kid an Xbox or a PlayStation as well. You know, not all kids are ready to be exposed to the internet, and not all kids are ready for some games. You know, you gotta show some discretion in that. So in this article, it mainly says how horrible it is that there are no parental controls for the Quest. And I mean, I get that some people may want parental controls. They can be really helpful, and they don't really come with any drawbacks. But not only is that pretty standard to not have parental controls, seeing as the closest thing Steam and Epic Games have to protecting kids from adult contact is having them click a box to say they're 18. But parental controls often don't do much if your kid puts their mind to it anyways. When I was younger, I remember bypassing all the parental controls on my shiny new DS. So while parental controls would be a nice thing to have, I find it a little unfair to fault Meta and not anyone else for doing the exact same thing. If the article stopped here, I would have no issue with it, because while I disagree with some elements so far, it's a somewhat normal, not insane take on things. Unfortunately, the article takes a turn for the worse. and uses the CCDH as evidence. I mean, if you're going to use something as a source for your article, you should at least watch their main promotional video. Because if you do, you'll immediately realize that this is an organization and study you do not want to associate yourself with. So yeah, this article also mentions the CCDH's research about how kids are literally being abused in VR. So how about we do what we've all been wanting to do and take a look at the CCDH. So they got a Facebook page, a Twitter, a YouTube, and a website. The Twitter and Facebook pages I found a little interesting because it seems that before Christmas and the big boom of VR that came with it, they were mainly focusing on demanding Facebook and other platforms censor misinformation, which is hilarious because, as you will see, that's exactly what this organization does best: spread misinformation. Okay, so their website is what you would expect from a nonprofit. They got their campaigns, their missions, their blog, etc. But what's interesting is on their homepage, they have a video in the front, and it details the study both articles cited. Let's watch it together. So the first thing you can see is just the amazing thumbnail they got here. Screaming danger. Literally. Like they couldn't be any less subtle. Alright, here we go. Playing the ominous music. Very nice, very nice. Pause. This is supposed to be like a scientific study. Yet they literally won't show us any of the evidence. Like really, we're supposed to just believe them. What reason could they possibly have not to tell us? I'll tell you why they aren't making it available. It's because what they found probably wasn't that bad, and they are just using scary buzzwords like racism, harassment, and abuse to make people imagine things far worse than reality. Okay, so they found racism, sexual content, grooming children, harassment, and abuse. They refuse to actually elaborate because it's so awful, but even so, I find it plausible that some of these things do legitimately happen frequently in VR chat. VR chat is a game with players from all different backgrounds and with many different personalities. Play enough and you will find a dickhead who either spams the N-word or the C-word. From my experience, this is reasonably rare. Generally experiencing this maybe once every 2 hours in game. Sexual content probably makes up most of the offenses in this study, mainly because it's so vague. An avatar with some cleavage showing could be considered sexual content. A sexual joke or a bare-chested male could also be considered sexual content. So that's what I'm thinking most of these offending incidents were. Same with harassment and abuse. Such vague terms could be used to describe literally anything. As for the of children, I personally have never come across this. However, I'm sure it does exist, and I'm sure it is quite horrible. That being said, it clearly doesn't happen very often, because I've played for at least 10 hours and never seen it happen. So either the guys who made the study were, really lucky, or more accurately unlucky, or they're lying. Okay, this should be obvious. In fact, I would say minors were probably always involved. Remember, they're including anyone 17 or under in this stat, which most people who play VR, or games in general, probably are minors between the 15 and 17 range. And since they can't verify anything, they probably just asked around, and if a single person in the lobby said they were under 18, they added it to the statistic.
Open standards, privacy, and safety need to be built into the metaverse from day one. You really want to emphasize these principles from the start.
With how vague of a term harmful content is, of course you found it if you were looking. Once again, most of those things were probably vague stuff like sexual content or harassment. How stupid do you have to be? I'm genuinely curious. Like, you either have to be just beyond stupid or intentionally lying to the public at this point. It is common knowledge that Facebook does not own VR chat, and VR chat isn't even exclusive to Oculus. Those people could be playing on Steam for all you know. If you have an issue, at least report it to the right place. Like, of course they went unanswered. You reported them to Facebook. They probably saw these reports and laughed their asses off. because that's like reporting a tweet you didn't like to the British government. You're going to the wrong person. Of course they're not going to take action. Demand Facebook take action? For what exactly? A game that isn't theirs, with users that don't even play on their platform. Why would Facebook be responsible to take action? And I should mention that you can just block people you don't like. The player is being racist or harassing you? Just block them. You won't be able to hear them or see them again. Problem solved. Well, that's going to do it for today. I hope you were able to have some fun and laugh a little at the absurdity of the CCDH. And I also hope you learned something. The mainstream media really seems to hate VR, so I'm sure more news networks and journalists will use this study as evidence to back up their claims. And now, when they do, you can recognize them as the obvious lies and bullcrap that they are, the second you see it. If you liked the video, consider leaving a like, and possibly subscribing. And may everyone watching this have a wonderful late New Year.